Welcome to the Heart of Racing, and today we're doing a special episode of The Good Oil. Myself and Will Freedman are here in the hosting chair. And Will, today we are going to be discussing Rosehill. Look, it was a bombshell announcement. There were no leaks, there were no hints that all of a sudden the Australian Turf Club could sell Rosehill, and the government's involved and there'll be developers involved. It won't be a racetrack in 5 years' time. That's the plan anyway. There'll be a big Sydney Metro rail station there, 25,000 houses / apartments, and there's going to be a school and open space in there. And I suppose we're in that day and age now where we look back at history and a track like Rosehill, and once we would have thought over our dead bodies, and now with governments under pressure all over Australia with the housing crisis, I've been surprised, Will Freedman, that there's people have been a little bit ho-hum about the fact that Rosehill could be closed down as a racing track.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've sort of found out as a training group.
So just to clarify for everyone listening, yourself and your father in a training partnership are one of 7 trainers who have stables and train horses at Rosehill. One of those trainers is Chris Waller.
Yes, Chris has about close enough to 50% of the training population.
The whole complex,
so it's affecting him as much as anybody, like proportionally a lot more. He's got more staff and whatnot. But I'll run you through the sequence of events. So we got asked to go to a meeting face-to-face with the ATC's CEO.
That was this week?
That was the day before it was announced, so day before yesterday.
Okay.
And we had no idea. It was
no whispers out at Rosehill at all?
None. No, complete surprise.
Wow.
So he came in, it was done very well. Brought us we had a meeting in our office, and he talked through the reasons why.
He came personally to the Freedman office.
Yeah.
Didn't call all the trainers in as a collective?
Went
one by one?
One by one, talked to each trainer. And explained the reasons why it was happening, and assured us that we would be looked after. And it was a lot to process at the time. And my first instinct as a trainer there was, look, it's a good opportunity for the industry. $5 billion. There's a little bit of murky area in gambling wise. For turnover, is it going down? Is it staying the same? Is it going to go up? And I sort of see.
So hang on, is that now or is that
now.
in the right now?
Right now, it looks like there's a little bit of a downward
bit
turn.
of a softness,
and there's a bit of uncertainty as to for the gambling advertisements, whether they're going to be allowed in the future. So I sort of look at it in a holistic approach and go, well, maybe we need that support for now until we navigate our way through this period. So that was my first instinct. And then my next instinct is, where are we going? And this is when they announced to us at the time, they said, we're looking at a whole range of different areas. Even though they've said Horsley Park, it's not the only place.
For a brand new racetrack?
No. For a brand new training
facility.
So the training facility will most likely be separate from the new training track. So it's not going to be us moving to the new training track. It's likely we're going to have a purpose-built training facility and then a racetrack somewhere else in the metropolitan area.
So you'll be able to work your horses at the training facility?
Yeah, and then they'll have a racetrack for only, like Caulfield is now, with no horses trained on track, just the racetrack. That's likely.
So they want to keep a 4th racetrack in Sydney?
Yeah, they want, and they're on the lookout for another. They told us that. They said they're on the hunt for a 4th racetrack location.
See, this was the question I had, Will. So let's just say the number's correct, right? We can't speculate about the number. And go, oh, this is what it'll be at the end of the day. All we know is at the moment they think $5 billion.
Yeah, that's
right?
what they think.
From developers, and there'll be compensation from the government and all these. Let's just go $5 billion goes to the Australian Turf Club and Racing New South Wales and everyone involved. They'll have to build a new training track for all of you to move to. They'll have to build a new racetrack.
Yes.
They've announced that they want to upgrade Canterbury. They want to upgrade Warwick Farm. What's left? What change is left out of the $5 billion is my question.
That's a question I can't answer. But
because that's not cheap.
But I know the figure was thinking maybe $2 to $2.5 billion would be spent on the new infrastructure, and then the rest would go into a war chest for racing to, as I said, when we go through tough times, to navigate their way through it. So
If racing had a war chest, the Australian Turf Club had a war chest, let's just say they sold it for 5 and spent 2.5,
Yeah.
and everyone was happy
Yeah.
at the end of the day. 2.5 billion in a war chest
it's a lot of money.
is unassailable for a century as long as
And you got to
a
think,
dickhead doesn't get in charge and blow
right?
it.
But think about this this is where my mind goes. I go, all right, let's look at the rivalry between Racing Victoria and Racing New South Wales. Racing Victoria are already starting to dial back prize money because of the turnover and the anticipation that it might keep declining. Racing New South Wales don't ever need to do that. They'll be able to maintain this level of prize money for as long as they want. They'll invest the 2.5
They'll
billion.
eventually grind every other state in Australia into the turf.
Well, it'll just be Sydney will be
The Mecca.
the epicenter of racing, and that's where my mind goes. And then I go, well, maybe I'm in the best position, getting looked after in Sydney. But the one thing that I am concerned about is this training facility that they're making. They're taking us and our staff and their families and their whole existence to a new location.
Because a lot of your staff will rent or might have bought a place in and around
Well, they have
Parramatta.
kids
Their kids are in school.
Right. So there's
and
all
all
of
those
this.
things.
We're doing the heavy lifting, the Rosehill trainers. For the other trainers at Randwick and Warwick Farm to all get the upgrades to their facility.
Happy days.
That's fine. I'm happy for them to get taken care of. But the training facility has to be world class. It cannot be done on a shoestring budget. It has to be done properly. So people go, oh, you wouldn't believe what it's like at the training centre. That's where I want my horses. And if they can't produce that, then it really doesn't bode well for the Rosehill trainers getting pushed out to upgrade the facilities for everyone else.
So one thing I'll say about you, Will, is you're young and you come at racing with a different philosophy to a lot of people, whereas you have this younger sensibility where you're practical, and you've been around the world with the Godolphin Flying Start program, and your eyes are wide open to all of these things and opportunities. Whereas racing's always been very traditional. In recent times, traditions have been thrown out. New races, the Everest, the Golden Eagle. We won't get into that now, but traditions are changing. I expected a much larger backlash. I know Gay Waterhouse has said a few things and a few others have said things about the history. But it seems to me like people are happy to say, yeah, it was a great place for the Golden Slipper and it was great to see Winks win there and there was the BMW and Kingston Town race there and all the greats, but we have to move on.
I've always wanted the Golden Slipper at Randwick.
Why? Because it's headquarters?
No, well, yes, that's part of it. But because Rosehill really plays like a small track. It's a big track, but it plays like a small track. A lot of jockeys will tell you that. And I find that, okay, you might find the odd Golden Slipper winner that comes from back in the field, but it's predominantly won by
on paces.
And Gay winning 7 of them will really strengthen that case.
Attest to that because she runs from the front.
I'd love to see a Golden Slipper at Randwick where everyone gets their chance. It's the barrier suddenly doesn't become quite as important as it did at Rosehill. I think there's a lot of good things that happen about Rosehill and a lot of people will miss it. But I've also heard a lot of commentary talking about this whole new deal and they've got all the facts wrong. Like I was in the meeting that got told of what's going to happen and I've heard people talking about the deal, getting the number wrong for what they're expecting back or, this whole different range of things and trying to get into the political debate of it. The political aspect is not my concern.
Yeah.
That's if there's a backlash about building 25,000 units there or 40,000 units in the area and having the metro line there, that's someone else's problem. As long as I can be assured that where we're going is better than where we're at, I'll take the hit to make sure that we have to move everything there.
And right at the moment, for you and your fellow trainers at Rosehill, I was stunned to learn there was only 7 trainers at Rosehill. But, Chris Waller's got an enormous stable. And
well, put it this way, before you go on, there's 340 horses trained at Rosehill.
So there's 340 boxes in work at any time.
There's about 500 at Randwick.
Yep.
There's about 700 at Warwick Farm. So realistically, if anyone's going to move, Rosehill makes more sense. Because even if they don't build the training centre, if they say, okay, we're going to put an extra 180 at Randwick and an extra 180 at Warwick Farm, that can happen as well. Like that's not what they're proposing, but it can happen.
And this is a huge debate as well. And it's about governments across Australia are under pressure. And people go, I hate politics in sport. Well, get with the program. Politics and sport will mix forever and a day. And this is about politics. Governments are under pressure to provide housing. What are the two big things the Minns government's done? The new New South Wales government will take half of Moore Park because our golf's for elites, and we'll take Rosehill. Because, there's only, people who like racing like Rosehill. It's low-hanging fruit. No one's saying we're going to take Centennial Park or Hyde Park or anything like, don't talk about it. There's an Aussie rules field right there at Moore Park, right where the golf. No one mentions the Aussie rules field. Don't touch that because kids play there. Well, kids play golf too. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but what I'm saying is this stuff's real. If people don't think it's real, that it's happening, they're kidding themselves.
But have you ever been to Rosehill on a Wednesday or an off-carnival Saturday? There's no one there.
No, there's nobody there. Look, by and large, a lot of race meetings now are like live poker machines. Let's face the facts.
Like they watch them on their phone.
Pubs
they watch
and clubs.
That's fine. But that sort of tells to me, like, how much are we disrupting people's lives? Outside of the people that work there, how much are we really disrupting people's lives? They only go there for the golden slipper or the golden eagle, but they'll still go to Warwick Farm if it was there.
And still they were disappointed in the crowd with the golden eagle this year.
Yeah, it's just not in the... And what people don't realise is the Metro West Line has been built behind Rosehill for probably the last 2 years. We've been putting up with that disruption the whole time, So it's Rosehill's quickly becoming a place that is maybe not the best suited place to train anyway.
Hey, I want to canvass a couple of other opinions today, and we're going to get Chris Roots on the line right now. He's the racing editor of the Sydney Morning Herald, obviously the Fairfax newspaper, which is aligned with Channel 9. I want to talk to Chris Roots just about his initial thoughts as a racing editor.
Hey, Rooter, all things well?
Yep, on the golf course this morning. So, just trying to do my best like we did at the Godolphin Golf Day.
They reckon he can play too, Chris Roots.
He carried me.
Don't. I heard Chris Roots complain. I don't want to. This is a half-hour podcast. He'll talk forever. Hey, Chris Roots, mate, I know you're on leave at the moment and you've given us a bit of your time, but what did you initially think when this bombshell news broke that Rosehill could be gone?
Yeah, in all honesty, Canterbury could never be sold with the way zoning is around there at the moment. So Canterbury ended up being green space because there's so many high rises at Canterbury. So when the 10 years come up, everyone, they're going to sell Canterbury. That's it. It's gone. But because there's so much high rise at Canterbury, they could never sell that. So they could never realise the land value there. Now, my understanding is that the club went to the committee that was putting together the Camellia project, and they said you cannot have a train station unless there's more houses. So what happened? They went back, did the numbers, and come up with selling Rosehill was the best possible result for them. So $5 billion is a lot of money, and you get one chance at this. We need to have probably a state-of-the-art racecourse with a state facilities for everyone there, built off this money, and hopefully we'll get a couple of training centres as well.
One of the things, Chris Roots, yourself as a racing writer, you're a racing historian, really. You're recording history every time there's a Golden Slipper meeting. The money versus the history, that's something I thought we would get a lot more debate on. It's been fairly quiet so far. Gay Waterhouse has outspoken a few others, but most people seem to be going, okay, I can kind of cop this.
Yeah, well, I guess history will always be there. An opportunity to get $5 billion comes along once in your life, as you say. You can do a lot of money, a lot of things with this money, and I just think it's a great move for racing, and it means that the club takes control of its own destiny from Racing New South Wales. They have the money; they can do what they think is right with the money and things like that. So, a great thing for racing. I just think it's going to. I think it can revitalise Sydney. I think we might have a straight track. We can have a lot of the thinking around it's amazing. I can't see how they're going to extend Canterbury. I think they've got a good bones of a grandstand there. I'd leave Canterbury as it is and maybe sell some land around it. But there's so many opportunities for them, but they've got to get it right. They get one chance at it.
And that's sort of the thing. I feel like racing Racing New South Wales has probably lagged a little bit behind other states in terms of their facilities, and this is really the circuit breaker for us to get it right and to make sure that we can get a training facility that is world class.
When you consider that every track in Melbourne has had a rebuild since a track in Sydney's had a major rebuild, the major tracks have had a rebuild. That tells you our tracks are tired. They've got an opportunity now to redo Randwick at the same time as redoing Rosehill. The only thing I'll say is when Rosehill shuts its doors, we need to be able to walk into the new facility, wherever that is, and race day. That's the big thing. So the final Rosehill meeting, there's going to be 50,000 people there. It'll be a fantastic event. I don't know what they're going to do with the Winks and Todman Trophy statues. I hope they go to the new thing to take a bit of the history with us. Maybe leave Winks there to remind everyone that she lived there. But, it's a great opportunity for racing as I see it.
Okay, Chris Roots, thank you. Get back to your golf.
See you, mate.
There he is, Chris Roots. See, this is what I'm saying.
There's no backlash. There's none. I don't think there's much.
There's hardly any at all.
Don't worry, it's not going to be a smooth sailing approach.
Mate, it'll be a tough 5 years.
One person that you haven't heard much from yet is Chris Waller.
He hasn't said a word.
Nothing.
How many horses does he train there? 150?
At least. I think a few more. Not around that mark.
He's got 150 boxes. That's a big operation. That's a lot of staff. That's a huge logistical exercise.
Of course it is. And Chris deserves the right to have a significant say in what happens. And he's probably just waiting to see what this training facility looks like, where it is, sizing up where he's going to be. That they'll want his full support before they do anything finalised.
Well, it just goes to show, Will Freedman, I think this whole thing, it's about the age we live in. And the selling off of Rosehill is something that, 2 decades ago, the tabloid newspaper in Sydney, the Daily Telegraph, the conservative then broadsheet, the Sydney Morning Herald, the radio commentators, there just would have been absolute outcry.
But you know what I would love to see? So say we buy this new Metropolitan racetrack. What I'd really
Where's the land coming for that? But
well, anyway,
don't start me.
They'll find the land.
Yeah, they'll find it.
But when that happens, can we produce a precinct where it's not just a race course with a grandstand, like the old traditional way? Is there a new way of rethinking it, like what they do with Happy Valley in Shartin? It pumps every Wednesday. It pumps because they get young people there. Can they station it around a university? Could it be part of a university? There's so many opportunities to take that money,
make it something different,
and make it something that can take racing into the next.
Because if you just do racing, you just make it another Menangle Park, and you put it way in the outskirts of the city, which is what they're going to do with the new trot facility and the new dog facilities. They're going to build them south and southwest of Brisbane because they're going to take Albion Park away to build a basketball centre for the Olympics, and no one will go.
No.
They'll just be way too far out. They'll just, as I said earlier, they will be live poker machines. Those races.
It's got to be something different. It's got to attract people. And the one thing that I'm always big on in racing is racing cannot accept that it's a live poker machine. The only way racing continues to thrive is for people to keep attending. That is the only way it will thrive.
Yeah, and to keep actively engaged. Just before we finished, Chris Roots mentioned the Camellia Project. And people would have gone, what was he talking about there? That's the area in and around Rosehill. And you know it will. If you're watching the races on TV, when they're in the back straight, just look beyond that and you'll see the huge, vast industrial zone out there. I think James Hardy used to make asbestos there. So a lot of the site is contaminated in behind Rosehill.
Rosehill's literally the only place. When they
contaminated.
When they brought us into the meeting, 25,000 of the 40,000 new homes that they needed, 25,000 of it had to be at Rosehill, and then there were other places where they could
where there wasn't contamination. Yeah. So these are the complexities around there.
Because as far as I'm aware, for them to have the metro station there,
they need 40,000 homes.
40,000 more.
Otherwise, not enough people will use the metro station, and they're already building a piece of that metro. And you said it's just a nightmare out there, the noise and everything.
Look, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a nightmare, but
borders on being one.
Could be. Like, the horses are still winning from Rosehill, but you'd prefer not to have the noise.
Yeah. So you just want the nice state-of-the-art facility, nice, tranquil and calm, and then go into a pumping Happy Valley to race.
It depends where it is, though. Like, if we're 20 minutes away from Rosehill, fine. if we're an hour further away from Rosehill, well,
Yeah, they can't turn around and say Goulburn.
Yeah, like and then what happens is we, as trainers at Rosehill, upgrade Randwick's facilities for all the Randwick trainers, and we're just thrown out in this, training facility out at Whoop Whoop. Well, that won't cut it either, and that's the complexity of it. Is it has to suit everybody.
Okay, Will Freedman, there you go. That was the special episode of The Good Oil where we cut through the Rosehill issue. Look, it's going to be a long 5 years. I know you feel as though that there's a lot of sort of bridges to get over, a lot of hills to climb. I'm convinced it's going to happen.
Yeah,
because when governments want to do something, everyone goes, planning laws, they'll throw it out the window.
I'm sure that'll be the case. It'll just be a matter of how quickly it happens. Like I told my staff yesterday morning, I said,
get ready.
It's 5 years away. I'm not like get ready, because most young people don't spend 5 years in the same job anyway. So look, but the one thing we were very clear on as a trainer group was we don't want to be continuing to train as everything gets developed around us. Get us out. You can develop the whole thing.
Yeah.
But don't just drip feed us in this process of having all this construction around us until you're like, okay, now we're going to move the training. That won't cut it either.
It's got to be holus bolus and before the event. Good on you, Will. Train well.
Oh, thank you.